Say I was feeling a little blue today. Jerry had the same feeling because he even had a blues shirt on. But our message for today is called Sing a Song Sung Blue. And our scripture reading can be found on page 658 in your Pew Bible. It is Psalm 30, if you care to follow along. King David lifts up a prayer of thanksgiving. I praise you, Lord, because you have saved me and kept me, my enemies, from gloating over me. I cried out to you for help, O Lord my God, and you healed me. You kept me from the grave. I was on my way to the depths below, but you restored my life. Sing praise to the Lord, all his faithful people. Remember what the Holy One has done and give him thanks. His anger lasts only a moment, his goodness for a lifetime. Tears may flow in the night, but joy comes in the morning. I felt secure and said to myself, I will never be defeated. You were good to me, Lord. You protected me like a mountain fortress, but then you hid yourself from me and I was afraid. I called to you, Lord. I begged for your help. What will you gain from my death? What profit from my going to the grave? Are dead people able to praise you? Can they proclaim your unfailing goodness? Hear me, Lord, and be merciful. Help me, Lord. You have changed my sadness into a joyful dance. You have taken away my sorrow and surrounded me with joy. So I will not be silent. I will sing praise to you, Lord. You are my God. I will forever give you thanks. May God engage our hearts and our minds and our spirits today as we explore this portion of his sacred text. When Jerry found out that my sermon was titled Sing a Song Sung Blue, he wanted to know if it would be all right for him to play Neil Diamond's hit recording of Song Sung Blue as part of his call to worship message. I told him that I thought it sounded like a great idea if he would agree not to talk about the new movie out, which is also called Song Sung Blue, since that was going to be a big part of my sermon focus. Actually, I think it was a perfect way to set the stage, so to speak, for what I want to share with you today. So thank you, Jerry, especially for the compelling story you shared with us about your life and death struggle and ultimate victory in the ICU with COVID. Believe me, my friend, when I tell you that we are all very happy that God blessed you with such an amazing recovery. And I thought how ironic that I had asked you to be the worship leader today, not knowing that about you, when King David in verse 3 said, you kept me from the grave, I was on my way to the depths below, but you restored my life. Diane and I actually did go see the movie Song Sung Blue at Willow Knolls Theater in Peoria shortly after its opening, with buttered popcorn, of course. Large buttered popcorn. The movie is based on a true-life love story about Claire Stingle and Mike Sardina, two people from Wisconsin, who both happen to be singers and entertainers. When they meet each other, they are both single parents, with each of them having a teenage daughter. They fall in love and get married, and being entertainers, singers, Claire suggests that they create a Neil Diamond tribute band. She said, we can call ourselves Lightning and Thunder. They hired some other musicians for accompaniment and backup, including trombones, and created entire concerts performing nothing but Neil Diamond hits. They were so good and became so popular and successful, they even started opening for world-famous bands like Pearl Jam. I'm not going to tell you any more about the movie because, if you do plan to go to see it, I don't want to spoil the movie. Except I will tell you that it is a great and entertaining movie to watch. I do have to warn you, though, that it is rated K. K for Kleenex. 1 box or 2 boxes, depending on how soft your heart is. This high-quality, professionally made movie, big feature movie with big-name actors like Kate Hudson and Hugh Jackman and Jim Belushi, one of the original Blues Brothers, to name a few, was based on a previous documentary of the same title that was filmed about 17 years earlier in 2008. During my research for my sermon, however, I discovered that just before the documentary was supposed to debut at a film festival, the maker of the film, Creve Coeur, received a cease and desist letter from Diamond's record label telling him he could not show the movie with the music. In desperation, Greg reached out to Eddie Vedder, the lead singer of Pearl Jam, who also appeared in the movie, and asked if he could help. Eddie personally called Neil Diamond and asked him to intervene, telling him, "You gotta watch this documentary and you gotta let them use the music." Neil watched it, and he was deeply touched by this documentary movie, and he instructed his publishing company to let Greg show the movie with his music. Craig Brewer, the writer and director of the newly released professional version with all of the big actors, received reports that Neil Diamond was also very enthused while watching a private viewing of his new movie that was just released. He was told that by people that were there, including his family, that Neil was so enthused about it, he applauded after each music performance in the movie, and that he also cried during the movie as well. And sometimes when we do our hymns from the hymnal, I do some research and find that there's a compelling backstory behind some of those lyrics that were written. And I thought, sing a song sung blue. And I wondered to myself if Neil Diamond had some kind of real life experience, maybe some kind of tragedy that caused him to be inspired to write a song sung blue. And I started asking the internet, my internet sources, if there was some kind of backstory about this song. What I found instead was that he was simply inspired to write it by the second movement of Mozart's Piano Concert 21. That surprised me. Interestingly, Neil Diamond was quite surprised by the song's huge success. He never thought it would gain the popularity that it did. But the song was number one hit on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100 chart for 1 week in July of 1972. Song Sung Blue also spent 7 weeks at number 1 on the Adult Contemporary chart, in addition to hitting number 1 on the U.S. Cashbox chart and even some top spots on the music charts in other countries. Diamond described Song Sung Blue as a very basic message, unadorned. I didn't even write a bridge to it because I never expected anyone to react the way they did to Song Sung Blue. I just like it, the message, and the way a few words said so many things. Well, apparently, millions of other people in this country and around the world liked it too. When he sings, "Me and you are subject to the blues now and then," he ain't talking about himself and one other person in the room. No, His message hits home with us. Just about me and you around the world. Because we've all been there. Neil Diamond's been there in his lifetime. You've been there. I've been there. King David been there. King David talked about it in his scriptures today. You can hear it in his words when we read at the beginning of this message. But then you hid yourself from me, and I was afraid. I called to you, Lord. I begged for your help. What will you gain from my death? What profit from my going to the grave? Hear me, Lord. Help me. Be merciful. If that ain't singing the blues, I don't know what is. But in the same poem, or song if you will, he also sings them out again, like Neil Diamond says. You're in the blues, you sing them out again, and pretty soon you start feeling good. You simply got no choice. It seems that King David also had no choice but to start feeling good again after he sang his troubles in his poem to his God. His anger only lasts for a moment. His goodness lasts for a lifetime. Tears may flow in the night, but joy comes in the morning. You have changed my sadness into a joyful dance. You have taken away my sorrow and surrounded me with joy, so I will not be silent. I will not be silent. I will sing praise to you. Lord, you are my God. I will give you my thanks forever. You see, King David refused to get stuck in the valley of the blues. And there's a real danger of getting stuck in the valley of the blues. You know, because some of those blues valleys are pretty shallow. And they're not very hard to get through. But some of those blues valleys go way down deep. And man, it's hard to get up that other side. King David had some of those deep valleys as King Saul continued to pursue him and try to kill him to keep him from taking King Saul's job. But time and time again, in the Psalms that he wrote, King David keeps coming back to the center of his faith. And his faith remained strong enough to make it through to the other side, to find that joy that comes in the morning, that joy that God surrounds you with when you come out of the valley of the blues, counting his blessings more than his woes. Neil Diamond also refused to get stuck in the valley of the blues. He's had some pretty long, deep valleys. Neil grew up in a poor Jewish home in Brooklyn, attending several different schools. His father's parents and his mother's parents were immigrants. His father's parents came over from Poland, and his mother's parents were immigrants from Russia. One summer, at a camp for Jewish kids, Pete Seeger performed a concert for them, and Neil Diamond was mesmerized. He received a guitar for his 16th birthday and started writing songs. He found out that he had this talent for writing romantic songs, and it attracted the girls to him in high school. His buddies found out and asked him to write songs that they could sing to their girls too. He was enrolled in pre-med college courses and only had 10 units to finish in his senior year. Had a bright future, a lucrative future ahead of him in medicine if he stayed the course. But he dropped out of college shortly before graduating to accept a job as a songwriter for a publishing company label at $50 a week. $50 a week. Equivalent to about $530 a week in 2024. That job only lasted 16 weeks. Still, he kept writing songs and even recorded some songs under his own name, but none of them ever became big hits. They didn't even make the charts, not the bottom of the charts. So in 1963, Columbia Records dropped him from their label. I guess he could have given up and went somewhere and got a regular job, but no, he didn't. I won't go into too much more detail about his life because it's fascinating. Wikipedia had I don't know how many pages, and I was just stuck reading all of this. But I will just say that there was a 7-year stretch, 7 years, from 1963 to 1970, as he was writing songs for these publishing companies, during which he was typically able to sell only about one song a week, barely making enough to survive. He found himself earning only enough to spend 35 cents a day on food, equivalent to about $4 in 2024. Not long after that, however, his career took off. After writing some big hits for other artists to sing. You remember a group called the Monkees? Hey, hey, I'm a believer. Neil Diamond wrote that song for them and several other songs. And as the Monkees were succeeding and climbing up the charts, Neil's career also started taking off as a songwriter. And pretty soon, he was offered opportunities to sing and record on major labels again. The rest is history. And he became one of the most successful, wealthy, and noteworthy musicians in the world, with accomplishments that most professional singers do not attain. He was inducted into 2 different music halls of fame and received countless awards for his songs and for his music. At one point, while reflecting on his life, Neil said, "I never really chose songwriting. It just absorbed me and became more and more important in my life." One of the other interesting things that I'm just going to throw in there is that when he was attending high school, one of his classmates that he sang in the choir with was Barbra Streisand. Amazingly, they were not close then. Oh, they hung out together outside, during lunch smoking cigarettes. But they didn't get close until they had both become successful in their music careers and then came to the point where they recorded the song together, "You Don't Bring Me Flowers Anymore." But I wanted to include these parts of Neil's life to show that the old adage is still as meaningful today as it was when it was first spoken: never give up. Never give up. No matter how deep the valley of the blues may get for you, don't give up. We all face obstacles, hurdles, and challenges. We can either overcome them or let them overcome us. Now, I'm not a fool and I'm not naive. I know there'll come a day at some point when we're no longer able to overcome the challenges that face us if we live long enough. For some of us, that's at a date far, far away, and for some of us, it's much younger in life. But the thing to remember is even when we cannot overcome the challenges that this world, this life, this earth throws at us, we're still victors anyway. Because the Son of God that rose up victorious over the grave will be there to help us overcome the last challenge, and that is to cross the river to our new home. In the meantime, if life knocks you down for a while, just remember, you can sing a song sung blue. Song sung blue, weeping like a willow. Song sung blue, sleeping on my pillow. Or, better yet, as Jerry shared in his moving call to worship story, pray your heart out to God. That's what King David did. And so did Jesus when he faced his own death on the cross. His gift to us. Amen. Our hymn of invitation for today is on page 501, "There is a Balm in Gilead." If there's anybody that hears this message, especially later on YouTube or Facebook, if it's caused you to have questions and want to talk about God, talk about your faith, if you just need a prayer, please call our church office. That's 309-699-8631. If I can't pick up, please leave me a message. Speak clearly and slowly so that I understand your name and your phone number, and I'll call you back. We'll talk and we'll pray. If you're able to stand and remain standing after the benediction, we'll sing our exit verse, Go in Peace. Come, let's stand and sing together.